Hi, I'm Mike.
And I'm Dave.
And join us every Thursday for a new episode of Two Player Bros, a podcast about two guys who play way too many video games. Join me and Dave as we talk about the latest in Xbox, PlayStation, PC, and VR news, previews, and reviews. We have it all, and we play it all.
And join us every other week for Post Game, where we play through and dive deep into our favorite modern classics and new releases.
That's Two Player Bros, available every Thursday wherever you get your podcast, part of the Forgotten Entertainment family.
Hey, it's Andrew Morgan, host of the Nomcast, the Netflix original movie podcast. Each week, we review the biggest Netflix original movies with special guests from the film industry, the music industry, comedians, and of course, our fellow podcasters. Check us out on the web at nomcastpod.com. Follow us on the socials at nomcastpod. And most importantly, listen and subscribe to us wherever you get podcasts. Hit that beat one time.
Hi, I'm Mike Field.
I'm Pat Whalen.
Pat is a lifelong comic book geek.
And Mike is a filmmaker and storyteller.
So naturally, a bulk of our conversations surround the world of the Marvel movies. Some consider the MCU one of the greatest achievements in modern-day filmmaking, and others just think they're comic book movies. Each episode will tackle one film and discuss the differences between the comic book and what's on screen. We'll explore the growth of the Marvel Cinematic Universe from its inception to present day and beyond, and have a little fun along the way. You may not have asked for it, you certainly don't need it, but you'll be happy we're here, we think. This is yet another MCU podcast. Pat, Wakanda forever. Let's go. All right, we are back. We are wrapping up our phase 3, part 1, I guess, season, if you will, or phases with Black Panther. So as we like to do here, I know I keep running it down, but I'm going to keep doing it. Let's talk about the movie first. Let's talk about the movie versus comic, and then let's talk about the movie within the MCU. So here we go. Black Panther, runtime of 134 minutes, rated PG-13, production budget of $200 million. Pat, what did it make its opening weekend? Do you know? Guess.
Oh, I have no
guess. Just
385.
Guess. Well, give me
Domestic.
385 million opening weekend.
Domestic.
Opening weekend.
Okay, you tell me.
202. Well, no movie. If a movie made 385 opening weekend, do you understand how busy that would be?
Check to see.
No movie has made 385 opening weekend. The show's already off the rails. Anyways, opening weekend, 202 million. Domestic, 700 million total. Worldwide, $1.3 billion. This movie came out in February.
Excuse me.
Yeah, go ahead.
You're right. No movie has made 385, but
opening weekend.
Avengers Endgame opening is 357.
That is not this episode. Okay, this is the Black Panther episode.
I'm just saying.
This is the Black Panther episode. For a movie that came out in February, that's
a good.
This is ridiculously successful, which is fantastic, and bravo. But it came out
late January to probably early April is where movies go to die. There's some romance movies. There might be an action movie or two, but for those looking for context here, post Martin Luther King Day to probably the last week of March,
true,
is where movies go to die.
Well, we will say this, that Black Panther was highly anticipated. Yep. But also February is Black History Month. That probably had a lot to do with it as well. And the week, so February 16th is the Valentine's Day weekend. Mm-hmm. That is a big weekend now in the theaters. It used to not be, but now that is a big weekend, not just for romantic movies, for any movie.
Deadpool has had success that weekend. So Birds of Prey was out this year, had mild success.
So that is always a big weekend in February. There you go. February 16th, 2018, this came out 2 years ago. Directed by Ryan Coogler. He also wrote the movie with Joe Robert Cole. They are going on to do Black Panther 2, which we'll get into. You had a lot of people that did not make Marvel movies that came into this movie. And that is on purpose, as Coogler wanted to bring in people that could create a movie that had a different feel or look. Yeah, visual
when
style.
We get to the Marvel, the connections, the MCU, we're not going to have a lot to talk about.
No, there isn't. And that's good. That is also why this movie is probably successful. Yes. It's because it stands on its own. So you have music by Ludwig Göransson, cinematography by Rachel Morrison, and produced obviously by Kevin Feige. I don't know why I bother with that. So
Ludwig on the scores in the movies, he didn't do any of the other Marvel ones, but he did do He does Mandalorian, right? And he did Creed in Creed 2, which is where Ryan Coogler.
And I'm pretty sure for this movie, he actually went to Africa and lived there for like a couple months and learned certain, like just kind of like music styles, like what they use for music and stuff like that to kind of blend into this movie, which I mean,
and they get the popular pop culture music in there. So it's a really good soundtrack. Absolutely.
Now you have a lot of people in here that have never been in any of the Marvel films because obviously their story has not been told, with the exception of obviously T'Challa, Chadwick Boseman, and then you had Everett Ross. They were both in Civil War, which Everett Ross is played by Martin Freeman. But you have a whole mess of new people here that we'll run into real quick. You had the villain Eric Killmonger, played by Michael B. Jordan. Nakia, did I say that right? Nakia, as played by Lupita Nyong'o. Listen, if I say these names wrong, I apologize. Okoye as Danai Gurira. I said that wrong. Gurira. I apologize. Wakabi as Daniel Kaluuya, who's also in Get Out, which is awesome. Shuri as Letitia Wright. Letitia Wright as Shuri. Winston Duke plays M'Baka. Sterling K. Brown is in the beginning. He plays actually Killmonger's father. He's Najobu. He also is the brother of T'Chaka, who is the original Black Panther in terms of like within this story.
Yes.
Angela Bassett as Ramonda, Forrest Whitaker as Zuri, and Andy Serkis, who I should say he's also in the other.
He's in Age of Ultron.
He plays Claw, which is funny.
This is your connection to the Marvel.
That's it. Universe. Claw, the white guy. And Everett Ross. Claw, that's it. Claw. And he actually ends here, which is nice because I was so tired of that character.
Yeah.
I'm going to say this. When the movie first came out, I enjoyed it. And I hadn't seen it since.
So I'm going to say this because we're already off the rails. When it came out, I wasn't a huge fan of it. It was just of the movie. Like I was just down on Marvel at the time. Doctor Strange was bad.
Were you walking into the movie going, "Oh, this better be good"?
Kind of, yeah. And then I just had like a bad theater experience, and then like it just felt like a story I had seen before. It's a Shakespearean story, is what this is, and I felt like it was one I had seen before. But the more I watch it, the more I see of it, and I watch it, a dozen times since, the more I enjoy it. And I realize now that how good of a movie it is.
Well, I'll say this because what I was going to say was I liked it when I first watched it, and I still like it again, but I think that the Marvel stuff gets in the way.
Yes.
I think that the insistence on, that like if this wasn't a Marvel movie, there probably would be less of the Marvel stuff within it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like
what Marvel stuff are you?
Well, I'm talking like Claw.
Oh, Claw.
I don't like Claw because
he is the Black Panther villain.
Really?
In the comics.
Well, that's okay. Well, I get it. But like in the movie, I've already, the fact that I've seen him. Yeah.
And he kind of got knocked down a peg by Ultron, and then he comes back here, and they don't exactly tie. They try to retroactively tie in some of his origin to it.
Right.
And it just, I'm not a huge fan of Andy Serkis in general.
Okay.
And I think he hurts this movie. He's in a different movie.
He is, agreed, because the Killmonger villain, because Michael B. Jordan as Killmonger is a really good villain.
Oh, he's fantastic.
And he's somebody who you understand why he becomes a villain. You understand why he's so angry and why he just wants to, do what he wants to do within the story. So and he does it so well, and he's great in the movie. So with him compared to Claw, it's like night and day. Claw is so over the top. Claw is almost out of 15. Killmonger is where he's supposed to be, at the level of everyone else in the movie. So I just don't. Yeah, Claw was really he was distracting.
He was.
Yeah. It's
good that they kill him off, but also because of, I'm sitting there, I know his ties to the comics. I'm just like, you just killed off, one of Black Panther's biggest villains. Not, 30 minutes into the movie, what the hell? So, it was one of those, like I said, it was just I was in a bad mode when I was going to see it. I see what they're doing to it, and I'm just like, what are you doing? But I do get that, he's in a different movie because he was amped up to a level in Age of Ultron, which is 100 times more comic booky than this movie is. And then he comes in with that same energy, and it doesn't.
Yeah.
It contrasts so poorly with Killmonger, who, like you said, he's an even keel for what he's trying to do. Like he's at a level that, he's just full of rage, but he's playing it in a subtle way. And I think that's the strength of Michael B. Jordan versus motion capture artist Andy Serkis.
Jeez. One of the questions I had within the movie, maybe you can explain this to me. If this has to do with the comic, we can move on for that. But T'Challa becomes Black Panther when T'Chaka dies.
Yes.
That's what happens I'm talking about in the movie.
Yes. Yeah.
But he's not officially named the king of Wakanda, which means when you're the king of Wakanda, then you are the Black Panther. So how do you become the Black Panther before not actually becoming the Black Panther?
I think he was Black Panther before his father actually died.
So he took over the reign.
I think he took over the mantle and the the role of it while his father was still king of Wakanda, while T'Chaka was still alive.
So you can have a separation between King and Black Panther. No? Yes?
Yeah, you can. I mean, it's not something that happens very much in the comics.
Okay.
But I think in this one they were, they weren't going to fit that character in, the Black Panther suit.
Right.
T'Chaka in the Black Panther suit. So I think he had gotten to the point where he was past the age of being it. They were preparing T'Challa to become king. So he's king in waiting. He's Black Panther. If he has to go and test his mettle. While the father has passed away.
I understand.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think
I was really confused a little bit, but it makes sense what you're saying.
Yeah, I think it was just more of a title they passed down, but you also get the title when you're king. And so you could probably if somehow M'Baku defeated T'Challa, he became king, and maybe he wasn't.
He'd become Black Panther.
He would be Black Panther, but maybe he could pass on the Black Panther title to somebody else
in his
name,
but it would have to be an heir to the throne,
Yes.
right? It couldn't just be a random guy.
Right.
Okay, that makes sense. No, it makes sense what you're saying.
I think that's how they did it, and it was more visual to have Chadwick Boseman obviously in the suit than to have his father.
No, I get that. Yeah. I was just questioning.
I think that's what they're going with.
So this movie was number one at the box office for 5 straight weeks. And everyone might not already know, I work at a movie theater. Right now I'm working part-time. Hopefully I'm not working there soon. But I was there when we opened Black Panther. And when I tell you it was busy, it was ridiculously busy. And the point, we always have posters and banners up from the movie. When the movie comes out, you take the posters and banners down. But we actually kept them up because people wanted to take photos near them. You had families coming in for this movie. This movie was IMAX, always sold out. It was huge. It was huge, and it was big, and it was everything that people tell you, which is great, because a lot, I think, with the exception of that, in terms of its length of how it was very popular, I would say the last movie I remember like that was The Dark Knight, because I remember The Dark Knight, because in the end of Black Panther, people always clap after they watch the movie, and Dark Knight they did the same thing. So some movies deserve applause, some don't. But the ones that don't get it, they'll get it, and I'll sit there and go, come on.
Yeah.
Probably beating a dead horse here, but it was extremely popular.
Yeah, and it meant a lot to a lot of people.
Of course.
Yeah.
Of course.
And obviously we'd be remiss not to mention, there were other black superheroes that came out, Blade being one of,
I always love when
the
people
primary focus one, but this came out at
a
a peak moment for the culture and everything, so that when you see these actors out there, being, Chadwick was great in the role.
Yep.
My note here is, he's clearly the star of the movie. He's the protagonist, but he gets outshone because he's not given as much as some of the other ones are. He's the straight man to everybody else.
So when you're the lead superhero in the movie, you don't get to have quote unquote fun in terms, you don't, because he doesn't. Clearly, Michael B. Jordan gets to ham it up in a good way as Killmonger, and that's his character. But Boseman can't do that because that's not his role, his character.
But I think seeing that straight man role and character who doesn't, he could be this character.
It's lonely at the top.
Yeah.
Yep. Absolutely. He can't, he wants to say things that he can't say. That if you've seen every show like that, or every movie where you have a leader who, of course you want him to show emotion, but he can't, because that's not what a leader can do sometimes. No, absolutely.
One thing I want to talk about, a great emotion, since we're on emotion, that opening scene, the one with Sterling K. Brown and the young Suri.
Yep.
Who his name's actually Denzel Whitaker. He's not related to Forrest Whitaker. It was just a weird happenstance. We're with them for 2 minutes.
Yep.
And that moment hurts when you realize the young Suri has been spying on Njobu, Sterling K. Brown's character. It's a 2-minute scene. Until, to the point where you get that moment. Most movies can't do that in 2 hours.
Yep.
And I think that's testament to the writing, but more so to the emotion. And Sterling K. Brown is incredible.
Yeah.
But to the 3 actors in that scene, I think that's an excellent moment.
And let's be honest, T'Chaka overreacted there. He straight up had no problem killing his brother. Mm-hmm. And it was just that's the move you go for, is straight to the chest. I mean, I get it if you hit his arm or something, but so everything that happened, it's very hard to find fault with Killmonger's anger.
Mhm.
Obviously, it's what he wants to do is a little bit. You can't have that, but you understand his motivation, why he hates everything that T'Challa or his father represented.
Mhm.
When he did that, I was just like, yikes, man, that's your own brother. And it was like, you had no problem.
Yeah.
All right, let's get out of here. I'm like, oh my God.
And they leave the kid, which,
Oh my God. Yeah.
again, to Killmonger's reasonings, like, you left him there. You could have taken the kid. What do you mean you were using it to keep the secrecy? You killed his father. You just had to wait in the apartment until the kid ran back upstairs, scoop him up and
right.
throw him on the plane, which we're not advocating kidnapping, but we're bringing him back to his ancestral home,
Right.
where
Yeah.
he had family and he could have grown up, instead of leaving him as a fatherless kid.
It's almost a callback to Thor
Mm-hmm.
when he takes Loki.
Yes.
Yeah. Back to Asgard. I do like the isolationist argument.
Yes.
It's very relevant now.
It was relevant
too.
then. It was still relevant.
That was a
2
whole
years
thing
ago.
during World War II with the United States not
Mhm.
entering the war, and even now where people are kind of like, why should we be the
Mhm.
protector of the world, all that stuff. And the other side of that argument is, well, we are a superpower, and it's our responsibility to make the world a better place.
Yeah.
That's the argument of the side, and that's the argument you're having here with Wakanda, which I liked. I like that kind of back and forth. That's a nice through line in the entire movie, because even again, back to Killmonger's, his actions are obviously not good, and what he wants to do in terms of fighting and causing destruction outside of Wakanda obviously is not what you want. But his idea of we need to share, not just stay within Wakanda, is true.
And it's what causes T'Challa to make that decision at the end of the movie,
right?
Both in Oakland at the United Nations and in the tag at the end,
right?
That is, he's not letting somebody's sins reflect poorly on the ideology of what he's doing, because he was also getting that pressure from Nakia throughout the whole movie,
right?
And Lupita Nyong'o's character, she was, I want to get involved. I want to go fight. I want to help these, other African nations that are surrounding us. That there's people being sold into slavery. There's villages being plundered and raped by militia groups and guerrilla groups. So T'Challa's getting that from two different sides. He's getting the softer side from Nakia, somebody he trusts, but then he's getting the harder push from an outsider in Killmonger. And I think they play that dynamic pretty well.
And you can obviously tell that Nakia's influence is working on him, or he's listening, because they take back Everett Ross when he takes a bullet for Nakia, and they take him back to Wakanda to fix him. And Okoye doesn't like that, and she fights back a little bit and kind of says what are we doing? We can't bring him back and all that stuff. And so you kind of get that sense that he's slowly leaning that way. So yeah, no, I think that's really good. So before we go on to the differences, which we will, there's a couple things I wanted to say that stood out to me the second time around. One is that I really like Winston Duke in
he's
general.
great. Yeah.
And not
He's
just
fantastic.
Not just in this movie. I know he's really good in Us, which although I don't love Us, but he is really good to the point where I'm watching him in this movie and I'm like, this guy needs his own movie. Just not a superhero movie. I think he could do anything.
Yes.
Honestly, he is that strong of a presence on screen that if he is not in the next 4 or 5 Oscar movies, I'd be very surprised, Oscar bait films, because he is really, really good. I love his throne room.
Oh, and then when he barks when Ross is talking, which is fantastic.
Yeah.
And he's I'm not listening to you.
He's a great character, but Winston Duke is a really good actor, and I really dig him. I also love, I never remembered the line, but I also love Killmonger's last line when he's going to kill him.
Drop me off at sea.
He said he basically said, just bury me in the ocean with my ancestors, because they knew death was better than bondage.
Yes,
that is such a great line, and they actually thought that line was going to get taken out of the script.
Yeah,
because they wrote a bunch of lines, and they have to you probably have to
go get it signed off.
You got to give it to Kevin Feige at the Temple, and Coogler thought that line was going to get cut, and they were like, no, that line stays, and you should actually build more around that line, which I thought was great. But that is such a great subtle line in that movie that
really good visual,
really good. Yeah, you immediately know what he means, and you immediately, and in that moment, what Killmonger is all about in that line, and again, that's not easy to do in a movie. Not a lot of people can do that.
No.
And don't just think they sit down and write that line and it's like, oh yeah, it comes out of nowhere.
Right.
Like that line, it's such a well done line.
Yeah, it's part of the process. It is through months and months of drafts and story and talking with Michael B. Jordan and talking with Ryan Coogler and
right.
determining who this character is.
And it's such a non-Marvel line in a Marvel movie.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Like these are not in any other Marvel movies. It's all like cliched lines and all ad-lib lines that we suddenly wrap around that we're like, oh my God, that's so great. This is why this movie is so good. And because it's a Marvel movie, but it's not.
Right. I think the one thing that gets it in trouble for being a Marvel movie
is Claw.
No, not Claw. Well, Claw, yeah, but the fight scenes.
Yep.
And I was not, the end fight scene when they're in the train and the magnets are going, that's a typical superhero fight scene. I don't have a problem with that one. That's just kind of your standard, you build to this conclusion and then they emphasize it by having that line you just talked about.
Sure.
T'Challa kills Killmonger, then he brings him out and sees the sunset, and then Killmonger delivers that line. I think they elevate that standard superhero, similar kind of mirror image of the hero and the villain by having that line in that scene.
Right.
What I'm not a fan of, and this is only because of Ryan Coogler's past work, is the two fights at the waterfall. And so these are supposed to be not so much the M'Baku one, but the one with Killmonger. The one with Killmonger is supposed to be this very intimate fight. They're fighting for the ideology of Wakanda, and one wants to go in the isolation route. One wants to get involved. They're cousins. There's family ties involved. T'Challa's father killed Killmonger's father. It's a huge moment in this story to see these guys going at it. And then the camera and the cuts and the edits, there's too many. There's side cameras, there's the above shot camera, and they don't flow very well. Like I get opening up with an overhead shot as they're facing off and then slowly moving in. But when you come off of Creed, and Creed has a ton of those like single take shots while they're in the ring, and it's the same type of story. Like the kid, he's fighting for his honor, he's fighting for his father's name in Creed. Apollo Creed, Adonis Creed. That's what they're fighting for. And so to lose some of that in this moment, I think is that Marvel kind of superhero mentality.
I would say that
they cut the fights a lot.
I would say that while it's supposed to be an intimate fight, they're cousins, but they don't really know each other. So it's symbolically intimate. Yes. But I would say that the fight at the casino, maybe not so much the casino, but the fight in the streets of where are they? Korea, South Korea.
Yeah.
That's where they go. That fight is more Marvel than the fights at the waterfall.
Oh, absolutely.
I say.
Yeah.
I think that. But
there is a single take where it looks like a single take
you.
as they move up onto the top of they're down below in the casino pit and they move up top. There is what appears. I'm not sure if there's like a silent cut there, but there is a single take.
No, and then we have the Stan Lee cameo in the casino scene where he cheats. He's not allowed to do that. Take another person's chips.
No, he's not.
So
well, it's a back alley.
He should have been removed.
Yeah, I mean, there's probably more rules in the back alley Korea casino than there is in like Mohegan Sun.
But I want to ask you this real quick because this is my one kind of not knock, but I just was like, my question was, they grow a lot of purple flowers. They give Black Panther power.
Mm-hmm.
Why? Like, why do we need to grow 20, 25 flower? And also, nobody else wants to take it. Nobody else tries to take a purple flower and tries to get the power of the Black Panther. Nobody. I get it. It's a community and it's all like all for one for all. But come on, there's not one person that's like, whoa, I want to be powerful.
Right. Yeah, I got nothing on that one. But what I'm going to add to that is when Killmonger burns it all.
Yeah, I know.
So that T'Challa can't come back or somebody else can't come and
take
it.
Yeah.
We saw that, T'Challa has it, he got it removed from him.
Yeah.
And then he drank it again when he was injured after the first waterfall fight. Does it run out?
I don't know.
Like, is that why they're taking it? So like T'Challa could just throw it in his morning smoothie? Like, is that what this is? And did Killmonger just kind of screw himself by saying, you tell me just,
well, I don't know.
A diet of protein won't get me to look like this.
Well, maybe that's a good segue for us to go into the comics versus movies. Cause I know you like to kind of give a rundown in terms of the comics, origins or Black Panther's origins. So why don't you go through that and then we'll do some differences.
Yeah. So Black Panther was created by Stan Lee and Jack Kirby. They first appeared in Fantastic Four number 52. There was a multi-issue arc. He is the first superhero of African descent and also the first black superhero. Many people think that the name comes from the Black Panther Party, which was popular in the...
That's one of my notes, Pat. Yeah.
Huh?
Okay, go ahead. That was one of my notes. Go ahead.
But it predates the party by about 6 months. It comes from other names. So there was a unit, an all-black unit in World War II that was called the Black Panther Tank Battalion. And then it was the logo of another predecessor to the Black Panther Party, which was the Lowndes County Freedom Organization. So they... I think Stan and Jack took some iconography that was tied to the civil rights movement before it was officially known. I don't think the Black Panther Party took it from the comic book. I think it was just more of a odd timing.
Well, didn't they originally call it Black Leopard? Why do I have that note?
That might have been earlier and
they changed it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because he was Black Panther when he met. So the Fantastic Four showed up. They sent a ship. Wakanda sent a ship to the Fantastic Four. And Reed Richards, one of the smartest guys in the Marvel universe, was intrigued by this technological advancement. So he's like, okay, we're going to go. Let's do this. And so they show up. At first, it was kind of standard fare for superhero books. They fought each other. So it was Black Panther and some of the Wakandan guards fighting the Fantastic Four. When the Fantastic Four proved their mettle, they say, hey, we were just testing you. We're just trying to see if you were the real deal type of thing. Christ. So it was kind of standard fare where superheroes would fight each other upon first murdering.
The note I had was that it was Black Panther originally when the Black Panther Party was founded. Then they changed it because I think so Black Panther, the comic was first, the party was second. Then they changed it back to Black Leopard. Nobody liked it, so they just went back to Black Panther. So they did change it a little bit.
No, that's good to know because I didn't have that in my notes. I'll just add that in that second issue of the Fantastic Four arc there, that we get the history of Black Panther. We learn that Claw had invaded Wakanda looking for vibranium, which we hear about in this movie, is that he killed people at the border. He killed W'Kabi's family. He was actually the cause of the death of T'Chaka. So T'Chaka didn't die in some explosion in the United Nations. Claw had killed him. This is also where Claw loses his right hand. And so, Claw becomes the
in the comic.
Yeah. And he gets a hand.
In the movie, he doesn't.
No, he lost that from Ultron.
Ultron rips it off comically.
Yeah. And so, but this is the moment where you learn Claw is kind of the bad guy. He's he's that similar to what we have here. He's a bad archaeologist. He's a minor kind of blood diamond type guy who's going to go and just go into these nations and steal and pillage and everything. The one thing I'll say about this movie is they did a really good job adapting it. Like they pulled pieces from different moments and they tied it all in pretty seamlessly. Obviously the Claw thing had to change a little bit because of the Ultron piece, but for the most part, this is a really solid adaptation where they took the pieces that they like and the writers were able to kind of smooth out the edges.
Right. So I guess I'll go through my notes real quick, or my questions from top to bottom. The horned mask that Killmonger wears, he takes the mask from the museum in the beginning because he's feeling it. That's what he says.
Yeah, no, it's a great line too.
So he also has that line where he's like, no, that's vibranium from Wakanda. Oh, don't worry, I'm gonna take that off your hands.
It's a good scene.
Yeah. So the horn mask that he takes is from a duel in the Black Panther comic that Reginald Hudlin did.
Mm-hmm.
And Reginald Hudlin is the writer director of House Party. If you have not seen House Party, you should. It's very good. And the demon Mephisto wears in Christopher Priest's Black comic. So I guess talk about those two. Talk about the Hudlin's Black Panther comic, I guess, and then Mephisto and all that nonsense.
Yeah, there's kind of 3 seminal runs.
Okay.
Or 4, I guess, if you count Jack Kirby's original run. But in the modern times, there's kind of 3 seminal runs of the Black Panther characters. There was the Christopher Priest run in 1998 that saw T'Challa go to New York and become a superhero there, part of the Marvel Knights group, which we'll touch on in our Netflix bonus episode. Then there was the Reginald Hudlin one, which launched initially with art by John Romita Jr., the son of famed artists, and he's a famed artist himself, John Romita. And then there is currently the run by Ta-Nehisi Coates. Was it The Shape of Water? Is his book?
I believe so, yeah.
Is being adapted into an HBO show. And so he's been on the book since, I believe, 2016 in various forms, different interpretations. So the Priest run saw T'Challa go to New York. He did all that stuff. There was a lot of new characters that were introduced, Nakia being one of them. And then the Reginald Hudlin one, famed director, he brought in a lot of press to it, and he helped relaunch the character again. The first 6-issue arc is really a discussion of who Black Panther is, and it involves Claw and a handful of other villains invading Wakanda again to get the vibranium.
Mhm.
So in the character of Eric Killmonger, and we could jump to him next, but a lot of times he'll wear like a mask,
Mhm.
like a triangle shaped mask. And so that is, the design they pulled for the movie is one that he wore in the Hudlin run. And then Mephisto, I really not going to go too deep into Mephisto.
That's fine.
Yeah, he's like a demon type entity in the comics. He I'm not gonna go into there.
No problem.
But yeah, he's wearing a similar mask as well in the Christopher Priest one.
So Killmonger in the movie, he's based on his version in the comics, but has elements of T'Challa's envious cousin, and the White Wolf, which is a relative of Black Panther who becomes an extremist. But my question to you, those two notes aside, is the Killmonger storyline in the movie similar to the one that is in the comic, where he is a son of the brother?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. So all that stuff, son of Njoku. No, he is Njoku. His father's Njobu.
Yeah.
Njobu. That family was forced to help. Njobu was forced to help Claw when Claw came and stole the vibranium that first time, and a lot of families died as a result at the border. Similar to what kind of that the piecemeal stuff we get in this one. Njobu died, and his son was exiled. So he became desperate to avenge his father's death. So check. He went to MIT to study. Check. And he, on multiple occasions, led a coup against Black Panther, especially in the times when Black Panther, who had joined the Avengers, would be in New York or would be in space or would be wherever the Avengers were. Killmonger would come in and be like, okay, I'm taking over.
Was he a CIA?
I don't think he was a CIA operative. I couldn't find anything on that. I don't remember reading anything with that. They may have changed the character in recent years to kind of tie into to the movies, but no, not initially. He trained himself. He was highly intelligent. And he went back and he fought. There is a moment in the comics where this original Killmonger died, and he was resurrected by the Mandarin, the Iron Man villain, who is the leader of the Ten Rings organization, which is a group we're going to see in Shang-Chi. So, I mean, just saying they could bring him back. I don't know if that undermines some of the story, but they could bring him back.
No.
There have been a couple times where Killmonger has beaten T'Challa. The same thing. They fight over the waterfalls, and T'Challa gets thrown over, and he gets saved and rescued. In this case, by an American woman who was there in the movie by Winston Duke.
Okay,
and that
M'Baku.
M'Baku. There was a couple other moments where instead of just winning the hand-to-hand fight, Killmonger would come in and I think they have a great line in this movie where, he's known to, this is who he trained him to be. He comes in at times of chaos.
Ever Ross talks about,
he's like, death of a monarch, change in government where, so Killmonger is in the comics had destabilized the economy of Wakanda. And then they fight again. And he did become the ruler of Wakanda for a short bit. I do know that he had a leopard with him. I think the leopard was more of a visual piece.
Prey,
yeah. With 2 eyes, maybe
2 eyes. Yeah,
I think 2 eyes. I like the uniform they pick. I don't know if that's necessarily like because it might be.
Well, the note I have is that his gold suit is supposed to be leopard-like to represent Prey, but it's probably also just supposed to be a different color than.
It's also gaudy as hell, and he like. But like he's picking the one that's more. T'Challa picks the more subtle one.
Sure.
He picks the more tempered one. He's the ruler. He picks that one. Killmonger picks the one. He picks the one that's left over.
Well, I was gonna say he picks
the one that's left over, but he picks the one that's I'm a king. I'm covered in gold. Which by the way, that scene where he assumes the throne, where they flip the camera.
Yes,
that was a really great.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely.
Yeah. And so then you asked about the other two. So Tassan was a character in the Reginald Hudlin run. He was the cousin of I'm trying to get the names right. Sayan was the brother to T'Chaka.
Okay.
Tassan was the son of Sayan.
Okay.
And so the brother, when in in this comic version, T'Challa went abroad to study. And so while he was away and T'Chaka died, Sayan, the father of T'San, became Black Panther in an interim role. So this goes back to kind of what we were talking about before.
Right.
He didn't assume the role. He was more like, interim king in waiting, you had the prince away. So T'Challa returned, defeated his uncle in ritual combat. And so T'San was jealous. He wanted to become Black Panther. He thought that he would assume the role when his father officially became king. T'Challa, being the statesman that he is, he appointed T'San as the United Nations ambassador to Wakanda. So it was you got kind of pieces of this where, it's that outreach program. And then the third one was White Wolf, which
they call
Bucky that. Yeah. So he's not related to Black Panther. He was a white guy whose parents died in a plane crash or something over Wakanda, and he was raised there. And so he was an outsider. He was treated as such, and his parents are dead. So he was an orphaned outsider that had some issues, but he trained himself. He became the top of his class over there, and he was appointed to the top of the War Dogs group, the Hatat Sarazi. When T'Challa disbanded the group, though, he became more of a mercenary. He became more of an antagonist to T'Challa, but he was a little unstable. He's a murderer. I guess it was an odd reference to call Bucky that. Like, I get that it's like an outsider piece to it.
They also called him that.
They called him a broken white boy.
Well, no, but is this in Black Panthers when they first called him White Wolf, or did they call him White Wolf in another one? Didn't they?
At the end of Civil War,
because he gets his arm at the end of Civil War, right?
No, at the end of Civil War, he's in the tube that is like reprogramming his mind or something. Okay. And then at the end of this movie, he gets the arm.
Well, no, because she just shows up. She doesn't give him the arm. She comes in and says, "Are you ready for your training?" or something like that. Or something. He's at the lake and he's looking out and he's like, "It's pretty, it's beautiful." And she's like, "Are you ready?" or something like that.
She doesn't give him the arm?
No, not I don't. You know what? The arm I don't think is given to him until Infinity War, because T'Challa gives it to him, because they walk down that hill and they've got it in the case.
Oh, right.
It's in the movie.
Yep.
It's not.
Yeah. Okay, you're right. Anyway, it's a weird reference to make to Bucky. I guess it's just like broken white boy.
I think it's just
training.
I think it's just kind of like, because you haven't seen him since Civil War.
Yes.
So I think it's just oh my God, he's there.
Don't forget he's there. Yeah.
He's awoken or whatever. Yeah, I think that's what it's for.
I would like to see. We don't know what's going to happen in the Winter Soldier Falcon show.
Right.
All presumptions are that Sam Wilson will be Captain America. I think that's what we understood at the end of Endgame.
Well,
when Cap gave him the shield. I'd like to see Bucky play more in the Black Panther universe.
I don't know if that's gonna. I think Black Panther, the success of Black Panther has deemed it where you're not going to filter it into other, you know what I mean? Because it's so powerful. It's so good on its own.
I would have agreed with you prior to.
Well, we'll get into that. Well, I wanted to. We'll
save some.
I wanted to save all that stuff in terms of its future for the differences. The connections. Because, but absolutely.
What else you got?
All right.
What else you got for me?
The line that Black Panther tells Claw when he goes, "Every breath you take is mercy from me," is supposed to be is taken directly from Jonathan Hickman's New Avengers comic, where he says that to Namor, the Submariner.
I
finally figured out his name. Briefly talk about that, I guess.
Yeah. So Namor is the king of Atlantis. This universe versions of Aquaman, essentially. He's more of a jerk.
Right on. Sorry. I every time we talk about Aquaman, I have to do stuff like that. Sorry. My man.
He's more of a jerk. Like he's a straight up jerk. And so in the Avengers versus X-Men storyline, Namor floods Wakanda. And so T'Challa and Namor have never really been fans of each other. They've sat on the Illuminati Council, which we've talked about before, the smartest, the representatives from all the different sections of the universe. I think Fox still kind of owns the rights to Namor as a movie title, but he could appear, and we're going to get to that later when we talk about the future. But yeah, so it's directly in this comic. They pull the line straight from it. Namor wants to destroy an alternate reality Earth, and he's going against the Illuminati. And so Black Panther is not happy with him. And so
I don't like that, man.
Yeah.
I'm not happy with you.
Every breath you take is mercy for me. That's where that line comes from.
I want to talk about the history of vibranium,
yes,
if we could. In the movie, it tells the history of vibranium is that a large asteroid lands in Wakanda, and that's theirs. That's fine. That's what it is. And then they talk about how there's so much vibranium it's unlimited. But of course, we can talk about it later in terms of the MCU place. That's we have rewrote history there with that in terms of like what we'll go into that later.
Mm-hmm.
But the vibranium history that they have put forth in Black Panther, is that similar to the comic? And if not, what is that history?
No, that's very similar to the comics. They have this meteorites came down, this great mound is what they refer to it in the comics, and in the movie I forget what it is, but it's the thing you look out to from Shuri's lab in the underground.
They're inside that. They basically have drilled down into the asteroid.
Yep. Yeah, they call it the Great Mound in the comics, and I think this is where you're getting at, because earlier kings of Wakanda sold minuscule amounts, like very, very minuscule amounts to around the world to kind of help fund which is where you get the shield from. Which is where you get the shield of Captain America. So it wasn't Howard Stark in the comics who invented the shield. In the movies, that's just a nice way to tie in with, characters we've already met. It was another scientist that was working in the Captain America project that had bought the vibranium and had developed the shield out of it was like a mix of vibranium and a steel alloy. So it wasn't full vibranium, but that's how it's able, in the movies, to withstand the absorb sound, absorb impact. T'Challa claws at him with his vibranium claws on the Black Panther suit. Mm-hmm. And so that's how it's able to withstand that the slice.
Well, his new suit is the nanomite uniform that he uses is from the new Black Panther run. Is that correct?
Yeah. So that's from the Ta-Nehisi Coates run. Brian Stelfreeze is the artist. So I want to get him credit in there. But yeah, it's that same type of idea where, he could have it on, it drops off, it comes back up. In this one, it's a little bit easier to visualize. I can't really explain the visualization of it in the comics. You're just going to have to read it. Thankfully, this is one of our recommended readings, so check that out. But yeah, it's that same type of idea where he doesn't have to put the helmet on all the time. Yeah. I want to know something.
Sure.
Where do the rest of their clothes go? So
I don't know.
We see him put on the nanite suit when they're in Korea.
Yep.
And his suit disappears. Like his actual casino suit disappears.
Well, it goes over. It goes over it.
No, it burns off.
Does it really?
And so same thing with Killmonger when he puts on the gold suit.
Right, you see
at the final fight, and he's got his robe on. The robe just disappears.
It's true.
We were watching the other night, and I said, "Where did it go?" And they're like, "Oh yeah, there should be a pile of clothes on the floor," and there was no pile of clothes.
Maybe the nanites eat it. I don't know. Maybe the robe. Maybe his clothing is made of nanites. Listen, I'm all about nanites. I've already gone on record on my other podcast where, like, when we're able to inject nanites into our bodies, sign me up. I want that. I want it. Fix everything in my butt. Well, I feel good. We're good.
Vibranium extremist.
I'm ready. I'm ready for that. I'm all about that. So yeah.
Yeah. So that was just a stupid little thing I noticed, but it was just the more you watch it, it's like, where did that go? And when I'm told, hey, what about the nanite suits? where did the rest of their clothes go?
Speaking of clothes and uniform, T'Chaka's uniform in the beginning is from Black Panther, Man Without Fear. Mm-hmm. Which run is that from?
I forget what year it was, but there was a Daredevil event series called Shadowland where Daredevil became the leader of the Hand, and so they needed a new protector of that 12 block rating.
So Daredevil goes bad.
So Daredevil goes bad, and T'Challa came in and was the protector of Hell's Kitchen.
T'Chaka or T'Challa?
T'Challa.
Okay. Because this one, my notes is T'Chaka's uniform. Oh, right. Okay. Apologies. Yeah.
Yeah. In the movie, it was T'Chaka's uniform.
Right. Got
in the comic, T'Challa had used it. It's got that African sash on. It's got a little bit more touch of gold.
Right.
So yeah, that's a run. I think it was only a handful of issues. It wasn't very long.
Okay.
But it was Black Panther has always been tied to, it's that, either the stories are in Wakanda and he's dealing with, coups, or he's dealing with other like issues with his people in Wakanda, or he's over in New York being a superhero, being that superhero. Right. And so like the Man Without Fear series was him being a superhero. The Christopher Priest run was him being a superhero in New York. The Ta-Nehisi Coates one is a lot more of the dealing with Wakanda and the ramifications of being a superhero outside of Wakanda. And what does that do to your people?
What about Don McGregor's Panther's Rage? Because that is the Rhino battle scene is from that when he tackles that digital Rhino down.
Yeah, so this is just a moment early on in the comic run. I think this is in the 70s. Well, two things here. First, W'Kabi is his best friend and closest confidant. in the comics. You know, we never get the ramifications of W'Kabi siding with Killmonger. We don't even see that in Infinity War.
In the movie, like W'Kabi's in the movie, he's a character that you almost want more from, but because you're so into Killmonger and obviously he's the main villain, that W'Kabi just kind of takes a backseat. He has this obviously because he's with Okoye, so they have that kind of
banter.
But they also have that where she basically they're gonna fight.
Right.
He puts
she's in love with him, but she's loves her country more.
Correct. So you have and like that's a nice little subplot, and it's an arc that kind of completes itself. But if there was more to that within the story, I would have been okay with that. Yeah. But you obviously it's already 220, so it's a tough. And this movie doesn't feel 220.
No, it doesn't. It's really well paced.
Right.
There's the scene in it when W'Kabi comes back, and this is after they return from Korea with Everett Ross is down on the operating table, and he's like, you know, where's Claw? You told me you were going to get him. And he's in Black Panther's, you know, T'Challa's like, you know, he got away. And so that's what sets W'Kabi off. He gets upset. You promised me this. I thought we were going to be different. Take him aside. He's your head of security. Take him aside and say, we were set up. You know, this was prepare him for what else is coming, because you have an idea, and obviously maybe you don't want to bring it to the council. Maybe you don't want to get like fears up, but he's your confidant. He's your best friend. We've established that when we go and visit the Rhino Pen. Take him aside and tell it. But obviously that doesn't, you know, that would lessen some of the conflict in the story. You need that.
Yeah.
So
we'll talk about the Rhino battle.
Yeah. So the Rhino battle, it was just that he was stopping this Rhino from trampling some children. His suit at the time didn't have this energy, you know, emission.
The energy thing, is that from the comic as well?
I think that's more from the recent run.
Okay.
I couldn't find it in past runs. I know it's in the recent one where the Brian Stelfy's design, and then the Ta-Nehisi Coates one.
Okay.
So it was just him basically outsmarting this Rhino that was running around, and so that was it.
Okay.
Yeah.
My last note, and if you want to keep it brief, because we should probably get on to the next section, is Zuri they have him in here as somebody who was a spy who obviously was meant to keep track of the Jobu in the beginning, and then he goes back to Wakanda, and we don't know what happens to him, but in the comics, he is somebody who fights alongside T'Chaka. He's like a powerful warrior, but he's also friends with Thor.
Everybody's friends with each other in the Marvel universe. Yeah, I mean, I think that's just it. When the thing, and we kind of touched on this in other episodes, is the Marvel bullpen was all sitting next to each other. You know, they would, and a lot of it, you know, it was all being edited by Stan Lee. He was the creator on a lot of these things. You know, artists were doing multiple books. You know, they could just peer over, hey, what's so and so doing this month, and they would, you know, it was a lot less of a, like nowadays it's mapped out, you know, months and years ahead. Back then it was just kind of be like, I don't know, why don't they play baseball with Black Panther and some of his people? It's like, okay, cool. Thor will go down. He'll, you know, hit it into space or something. So that was kind of like, you know, so they'll be able to like pop their characters in and out. And that was something that DC was struggling with at the time. And it was easy for them because they were starting this universe from scratch. And so, yeah, Zuri was, I mean, same thing. He was created in that 98 run. He was an ally and companion to T'Chaka, training T'Challa. You know, he was eventually killed alongside W'Kabi. Yeah, that's yeah.
All right. Let's go into this movie's role within the MCU, and then obviously its future. I want to talk about vibranium real quick. In 1992, in this movie, Claw steals vibranium. Okay, he steals vibranium and then does nothing with it for up until Ultron.
I guess
exactly. And then but okay, go ahead.
I was gonna say that's a place where you could tell a story.
Sure.
You could tell.
Would he lose it?
Well, you could tell up to that story.
Sure.
You could tell. Well, I guess.
Okay, so you're telling me that you would want a Andy Serkis Claw? Yeah, exactly. No. There you go.
Plus, it would be almost the same thing that Solo, a Star Wars story, does, which is tell a story that doesn't need to be told.
Exactly.
We understand the moment, the emotional crux of it in that 3-minute span we got early in this movie. I don't need a 2-hour movie. I take that back.
This is one of those moments, like if you ever had the producer, you ever had somebody who was involved with the moment when you ask him this question, that the answer should just be, yeah, we screwed up. Like we just messed that up. And I'd be like, understood. I'd rather somebody just be honest than just kind of like fake it and be like, "Oh no, we thought that there was a."
I mean, we might find out that there's more
years.
vibranium out there that was bought and sold.
In Ultron, Captain America and Iron Man say that Howard Stark extracted all vibranium from Wakanda decades ago.
Howard Stark probably could have lied about that.
Okay, all right. I'm just saying. That was.
I don't think that was a mistake. I think that was an embellishment.
Right. No, obviously, no Avengers appear in this movie, which is great because I don't want them there. I mean, you think that they might appear during the South Korean fight because that's a pretty big fight that's going on, but that's fine. I don't want them in the movie.
Who's on the Avengers at this moment?
This is true. This is also true as well, but I don't want anyone there. I don't want anyone from any other movie in this movie because it would ruin it.
Yes. Because this is what we've been asking about for a long time.
Sure.
A standalone movie.
Sure.
And, Doctor Strange is mostly standalone.
Yep.
It's not good.
Nope.
Guardians of the Galaxy.
Well, they still got to be good.
Right? No. I know. I'm making a point here. Guardians 2 is standalone, but you need 30 other movies to understand it.
Well, what about the first one?
Yeah, I mean, you need like 3 other movies to understand it.
Okay.
Embellishing.
Yep.
But it's a standalone movie in that it doesn't tie in.
I meant the first Guardians. Is the Guardians a standalone too?
But you don't need other movies.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, I think with Guardians 2, you need at the very least Guardians 1 plus a handful of other moments from the other movies. So it's standalone, but standalone in air quotes because you cannot watch the movie with anything else.
Right.
This one is a great movie. The references are small and minor, and they're explained away. You don't need to be like, oh yeah, I should probably watch all of Civil War. You don't need to. You could watch the news footage and be like, oh, okay.
Okay. And
they never drag him down like, oh, T'Challa, you should be careful about the Sokovia Accord. You're a superhero going to Korea. Like, why aren't you worried about that? They don't care. And I'm glad that they don't care. So that is, we've already talked about some of the references that they don't really work, but I think what I'm trying to say is this is that standalone movie we were looking for. And have been for a while.
Okay. Yeah. No. Yeah. And done well.
Yes.
So Nakia is always wearing green.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason why she wears green in this movie is so she represent being from the River Tribe, which is great. But in the MCU, all villains are green. We talk about this in Ragnarok. Loki wears green. Hela wears green.
Yeah. I think it's just
I got you.
Yeah.
I just think that I wanted to bring it up because I think that's interesting.
Yeah.
But again, we just sat here talking about how this movie is separate from the MCU. So I don't care about how that I don't care about how it doesn't fit in because good, fine. It doesn't. It shouldn't. This idea that all villains wear green is stupid. So that's fine.
That's also a big trope in the comics because it was a color green and purple were the villains because they went they versus the red, white, yellow, blue characters that were the superheroes.
So that's all I wanted to bring up before we get into what we're going to get into now, which is obviously Chadwick Boseman has passed away.
Yes.
And now the future of Black Panther is, I know that we already know what they're going to do. It's not really our place is whether it's good or bad in terms of just kind of like, because we haven't seen the movie, so who knows what it's going to be. And this is it's not unprecedented because obviously actors have passed away before movies can start. And there's various ways they do things, in terms of with Fast and Furious, I don't know, 8 or 9, whatever it was, when Paul Walker passed away, they had shot most of the movie. So they had to use his brother to kind of fill in, which is understandable. You had in The Crow, when Brandon Lee died, they had to redo scenes and they digitally put his face on some stuff, but they had finished most of that movie.
Yes.
This is not something that has not happened before. But this movie was so good and so popular and just such a beacon for a lot of people that obviously gone way too soon. And now you have to really address the situation where now you want to continue the franchise. So what do you think of? I know that they've decided that Shuri's going to take over. That's the rumor that's going to happen, right?
Yes.
Okay. What do you think about that? Because I don't know, and maybe kind of bring up maybe what happens in the comics. Maybe that's why, because I don't know that history.
Yeah, so there's clearly precedent in the comics for this to happen, and there's precedent in the movie for this to happen. They established it in the universe is that the next in line gets it, has to go through the waterfall fight, and then they fully assume the role. So they built it in universe already. I think even if Killmonger was still alive, Shuri would still be next in line.
Right.
Because of, everything. So, she was Black Panther for a little while. There was a time when both her and T'Challa were Black Panther. Letitia Wright plays a great character in this moment, in this movie.
Yeah.
And one of the things
she's the cute character from Bond.
Yes.
Yes.
And one of the things that that I really like that we didn't touch on during the review is they are siblings. And Marvel does a really good job with siblings, whether it's Thor and Loki, but Black Panther and Shuri are, they're siblings. They clearly care about each other, but they tease each other and everything. So,
sure.
That was a huge part of their relationship, but she's more of that comic relief. She's the sidekick. She's the partner.
Sure.
Like you said, Q. I think elevating her to Black Panther immediately in the next movie is going to be a little bit of a challenge because it's a series from the comics anyway. It's a series about people constantly trying to take the throne,
right,
and be the leader. And I don't know if she has the weight to go up against whoever they get. I know there were rumors whether it was Namor, they were going to call it the Two Kings, or there were rumors that it was going to be Dr. Doom in a telling the Doom War storyline, which is when he puts in a new government to take over Wakanda. It just seems like, no way are
There's
we.
a lot of question marks.
There's a lot of question marks.
And
no way are we in charge here.
We're not?
No, sorry, Mike. I would have led with like a 5-part Disney Plus series.
Oh my God. No, come on now. Really?
I would have. And I would have bridged the gap. But
I understand what you're saying, and I'm all for crossing over platforms. I get that. But we are not the norm in terms of people who consume content. You know what I mean? So we are not. And the $202 million that it did opening weekend is not from people who watch cross-platform movies and TV shows to get to the movies. They're not. So I don't think that would. I get what you're saying, but I don't think that's going to work in terms of bringing people to the box office opening weekend. Now, granted, we are in a time where nobody's going to the box office.
True.
And when this movie gets shot and it comes out, which is what it could be 2023, maybe 2022, maybe we'll probably be back at that time. So, which is great. I don't know if you really can count on that to really impress upon somebody's going into the second movie. You know what I mean? Because people are not going to go from there's a series. They're not going to do that.
No, that's fair.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But go ahead. I did not to shoot it down, but I get what you're saying.
I think the inspiration I'm taking for this one is post Civil War comics and post the storyline Death of Captain America when Cap is shot and killed. There's a 5-part series where they're dealing with the stages of grief, and it's Falcon, it's Bucky, it's Iron Man. I believe Spider-Man's in there. Sharon Carter's involved. The Punisher's involved. So they're dealing with these different characters and going through the different stages that, I think you could take a similar model and bring it to this series. It almost just, if it tells the story in between where when we get to the next movie, she could be the leader. They could just, easily say, there's a memorial for T'Challa. They could say this is what happened to him. And then they could get right to the story. And that could be fine for the broader audience. I think for people who want a little bit more, there could be this one where you explore the impact of this on Shuri, on Nakia, on Everett Ross, on Bucky, on Okoye, on Wakabi.
Sure.
And M'Baku. And how they, because is M'Baku, is he not going to challenge?
Well, he would.
Shuri?
That's what I'm saying.
So I think you need that moment.
You're going to have that because
Yeah.
you have every right to challenge.
Right. And I'm wondering if M'Baku, after, because we see him in Infinity War, he's now the leader of the security. He's sided with T'Challa as they defend against.
Well, he's at the end of this movie. He's in the circle. The tribes are now as one,
right? As
they say.
Yeah.
I don't see. Here's the thing. I would have been okay with if they just recasted somebody and you hold Black Panther up as like a kind of a memoriam of Chadwick Boseman. I get that. That would have been fine. I would have been fine with that. Whatever. But you don't do that. That's fine too. You want to do the Shuri storyline? That's fine too. The problem is that you cannot. I don't think you can do the storyline successfully where we're just supposed to assume that like you need to deal with T'Challa's loss.
Yes.
And you need to have this whole movie needs to be about her struggle to replace her brother. You can't throw, and I'm talking about, you can't do that in the first 20 minutes. That needs to be the whole movie.
Yes.
So at the end of the movie, it's almost like you're not going to see Black Panther in terms of the might of the character until the very end when she becomes Black Panther at the end of this movie. And it's a tough challenge to do, but you can do it. And listen, it's like, this is what life is like. The best laid plans, God laughs at your best laid plans kind of thing. You know, this is an opportunity to really like, you have I think this movie has created a cast. You have such a strong cast of actors and thespians, if you will, who can carry this, and they can carry it together. And I think it could probably be something that's really good. So I think people's initial reaction to be like, I love that we talk about the fandom and stuff like that. I love the assumptions of like what everyone should do. This is not your story. This is a story being told to you. Let them tell it. Yeah. So I'm okay with that, but it's a daunting challenge. It is. I don't think you should rush it. Let me put it that way. You're almost like recreating the franchise with the second movie.
You are. And it was weird that we heard that they were already going into production a month and a half after Chadwick had passed.
My one fear is that, and I haven't looked into this, but my one fear is that they're going to do with what we just talked about was why we like Black Panther. They're going to shove an Avenger in this. That's my fear. And I'm sorry, but no. Yeah. I don't want that. Right. I don't want another Avenger to pop in here and help. No, that's not.
The only one that I think makes sense is Bucky. And that's in a small role.
But he can't, he can't
be the star. He needs to be the Everett Ross type role of this.
Maybe he's somebody that he has a problem and he needs their help.
Yes.
And that's what spurs them to like, they need to like get into action and leave Wakanda and do something with him. And then you kind of see the faults of terms of her reign as queen and stuff like that. Yeah. But I don't want an Avenger in Wakanda telling people what to know. I don't want that at all. And if that happens, that's a big misstep. But hey, we'll see what happens.
Yes.
Because that we
3 years.
I know. It's like, that's the other thing. Like, I think that's with a movie like this, regardless of obviously Chadwick's passing, regardless of that, this is a movie that was so popular that this sequel would have been greenlit immediately, and they would have had this movie in production, and it would have already been out or coming out. We would have, you know what I mean?
It may have gotten delayed by COVID.
I'm saying like let's eliminate the whole MCU universe. Let's just say Black Panther came out. This movie's coming out a year and a half later, 2 years later, because it was that popular.
Yeah.
So
I'm saying like the only thing I'm saying is that it could have gotten delayed by the movie theaters closing.
I got you.
In the current environment.
We will probably be having this conversation of going, is Black Panther coming to Disney Plus like we're doing with Black Widow? Yeah. So that's all I'm saying. I think that that's one of the drawbacks of the MCU is the fact that you have to wait for movies now because they have a plan. And when a movie like Black Panther is so successful and you don't want to wait for the sequel, that's where you kind of get a negative. But you know, it's the fact that Coogler's still involved. I'm there. I'll be there for this movie is really good. And so I'm interested in the sequel. Of all the sequels, I'm probably more interested in this one than I am like in the new Spider-Man one. I could care less about that just because regardless. So anyways,
yes,
I know before we go to recommend reading, I know you want to rank.
Yes, because this is the last movie in the first half of phase 3. The reason we split it up is because phase 3 is twice the size of phase. It's the same size as phase 1 and phase 2 combined. So we split it up to make it easy, more digestible, easier for us to work on. And so we're going to rank phase 3, part 1. And so, Mike, who you got?
Oh, God. Mind you, I've not planned this because Pat sprung that onto me when I got in.
It was the last. We did it in the other ones.
All right, so I'm already going to say number 1 is Black Panther. I'm just going to say that right now because I've obviously spent the last hour talking about how much I like this movie. So I'm going to say Black Panther's 1. And then there we go. There is such a gap between 1 and then the rest of them. All right. So 1 is Black Panther. I would say I'm going to say Spider-Man Homecoming is 2. That's on the strength of Michael Keaton. Yeah. All right. So Black Panther, Spider-Man Homecoming. Pat's typing it as I do this. Man. I don't know, man. I don't, you know what? Okay. Black Panther, Spider-Man Homecoming. I'll go Guardians Volume 2, Civil War, Thor, and Doctor Strange. That was tough. This is probably the toughest ones of the rankings that we've done because there's such a gap between 1 and the rest of them. And then I was struggling between Spider-Man's definitely 2. I was struggling between Civil War and Galaxy. And then I was struggling between Strange and Ragnarok. And I didn't want to put Thor I've put Thor at the bottom for the last two, so I didn't want to do that to Thor for this one. I know Thor has got a lot of style and we talk about it, but I'm looking at substance. And so that's my ranking.
I'm basically the same. I flip Civil War and Guardians 2.
So
I like Civil War in that 3 spot, but you're right. There's a gap between Black Panther and Spider-Man, and then there's a gap between Civil War and the rest of them.
Right. Okay. That's where I am.
Agreed on. I mean, Guardians is a tough one to place.
Right. Guardians and Thor are like, you watch them and you leave the theater, you're like, oh man, that was fun. But then when you rewatch it, you're like, what is going on here? Like,
it's we've used this before. It's a Happy Meal.
Oh yeah, absolutely. It's McDonald's.
Oh man, it's like, this is good. And then you wake up the next day and you're like, I'm 32. I can't eat fast food.
So if those are McDonald's, what's Black Panther? What would you call Black Panther? Like Delmonico's?
Yeah, I think that's a double eagle steak
right there. It's like, hey, we're eating good tonight.
Yeah.
That's Black Panther. Absolutely. All right, so I will now leave. I think I've talked enough glowingly about this movie. Pat will now tell you some recommended reading, and I will see you next week we will start our first of 2 bonus episodes in between the 2 parts. I think we're doing, what is the first?
I think we're going to do event comics and how we adapt them. So I gave Mike a couple of event comic series that have popped up in the Marvel universe, and I wanted his quick take, no notes, nothing.
That's what that's the type of podcast I like, where I don't have to prepare. Actually, you know what? Now that I remember it, we did have some fun that episode. So that is next week. And then, so Pat, take it away with the recommended reading. Everyone else, take care.
As always, at the end of each episode, we like to send you home with some recommended reading that follows up on some of the characters and plots presented in this week's film. Our recommended reading section is sponsored by Infinite Heroes, comics, cards, and collectibles in Watertown, Connecticut. If you're in the Connecticut or New England area, it's a great location to pick up comics from Marvel, as well as DC, Image, and more. They also have a large collection of trading cards, toys, and collectibles. Owner Paul Santos has worked in comics for years, most recently as an editor at DC Comics. Ask him for a recommendation and tell him we sent you. So thanks again for listening. This week's recommended reading is Black Panther. It's the 3 main series that we touched on in the episode so far. So it was, first off, Black Panther, the complete collection by Christopher Priest. This is the series that helped revive T'Challa and brought him back to the Marvel Comics scene as Priest balances the King's royal duties and life as a New York superhero. Number 2, Black Panther, Who is the Black Panther? House Party director Reginald Hudlin took the reins in 2005 and brought T'Challa back to Wakanda. The first story arc sees Claw invade the country with a group of supervillains, explores the history and power of Black Panther. The series would eventually tie into the major storylines of the Marvel Universe, including House of M, Civil War, and Secret Invasion, and sees T'Challa fall in love and marry Aurora Monroe, aka Storm of the X-Men. So it's a solid read. Definitely check that one out. And finally, Black Panther, A Nation Under Feet. Famed author Ta-Nehisi Coates begins his extended run on the character. T'Challa must deal with the ramifications of being king and a superhero as a revolution comes to Wakanda. This is a great series to start with, a great jumping on point, and you could catch up now as Coates brings his epic run to a conclusion later this year. So check those out, and thanks again for listening. Remember to rate, review, and subscribe to Yet Another MCU Podcast wherever you listen to your podcast. And follow us on Instagram at Yet Another MCU Podcast. And we will see you next week.